Right, I am calling to order the City of Menasha Board of Public Works meeting. Clerk Aliazi, can you please take roll call?
Alderman Taylor? Alderman Taylor? Oh, I didn't hear it. Alderman Severnick? Alderman Langdon? Alderman Kruger?
Here.
Alderman Tom Grady?
Here.
Alderman Ted Grady? Alderman Rapella?
Here.
Alderman Nichols?
Hey, first up on the agenda is the minutes to approve from April 16th, 2019. Can I have a motion? Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. I will make the motion to approve the minutes from April 16th, 2019.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Alderman Tom Grady. Is there any discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to communications is the Public Works Facility USDA loan update. Director Jacobs? Or Doctor, there I go again.
Hey, I'm a doctor now.
Director Adamski.
Did want to let you know that the USDA has conditionally approved our request for funding for the Public Works facility, so that we received last week. We have been requested to keep it out of any media or, truly broadcast information, but it's perfectly legal to talk about it here with no problems. It's just try and keep it out of the media. Just wanted to highlight some of the next steps that we need to take. So we are planning on holding a workshop hopefully next week. I don't know if the mayor's set a date for that yet. But hopefully next week to discuss, the following topics: ownership of the land by the RDA and buyback provisions, possible development agreement covering environmental issues between the city and the RDA, city debt service with and without the project, USDA loan debt service for 20, 30, and 40-year loan plans, RDA cash flow with and without the project, and then as well as a timeline for approvals, bidding, and construction. What we are requesting from you in the coming weeks will be a choice to, continue with the project, and if we do continue with the project, do we pursue traditional financing, which we obviously, have looked at, and it's not overly reasonable to try and fit our debt schedule into a 20-year loan, or to pursue the USDA loan through the RDA. There are obviously some caveats with that, namely the top one is that the RDA will have to own that land and that facility to be able to lease it back to us. A lot of these details, will need to be worked out through the council and the RDA, and we do plan on keeping you fully informed. Part of the issue that we've had so far is that we were in the process of applying for it, and we didn't have any direction from the USDA as far as what actually, is approved and not approved. You can't really inform someone for something that's not approved yet. You just go, oh, we're not approved yet. But now we are approved, and so we do want to get you guys fully on board with everything that we decide on doing. And if there's any other information that you request that we bring to that workshop or to future council meetings, just let Director Jacobs or myself know, either here or through a phone call or through email, so that we can come prepared to that workshop and make it as meaningful as possible. We don't want to all of a sudden have something come up where we can't give you a straight answer because we don't have the information on hand. So we do request that any information that you guys want, just let us know and we'll get it for you. And yeah, that's pretty much what is the plan. So,
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to discussion action items. The first one is the payment to Yankee General Contractors Incorporated. Could I have a motion? Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make the motion to forward to council for the payment to Yankee General Contractors, Inc. for contract unit number 2019-02. And that's for the Province Terrace Trail out at Nature's Way on US Highway 10, State Highway 114, in the amount of $114,390. That's payment number 3.
We have a motion and a second by Alderman Tom Grotti. Alderman Taylor.
Thank you. I had 3 calls on this trail out there on District 8. And if you're going down Nature's Way or 114, you can see the straight shot of that trail going through right now, and it does. But is there going to be a connection with that over to the Conservancy?
So you're talking about the north end of the trail where it hits Nature's Way?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see it from 114, or from Nature's Way, you can see it's kind of a straight shot through there right now.
Right. So what we'd like to do, or what's on the drawing board, is to have that trail then go to the east.
So,
Sort of parallel Nature's Way, and then go down into the Apple Water Treatment Plant area, our Conservancy. Yes, there is a plan to
but
take the
that's
trail.
not part of the 700,000, it's
No.
just the straight shot there, that's 700,000.
The straight shot is the project, and that's, yeah.
Right.
What I'm describing is, that's kind of a next phase.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but I was just wondering right now if what you see out there, that's what we're gonna get for that 700,000.
And then you'll get the connection up to the 10 and 114 intersection.
10, 114 behind Quick Trip there, or is it coming?
In front of Quick Trip.
In front.
In front,
Okay.
yep, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, could we take roll call?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Moving on to action item number 2, one kind of sideways from the administration committee. There's issues, this was a bulk bid type of situation, and Director Radomski, could you please explain what needs to be going on right now, and any recommendations you have?
So obviously, the projects did not get funded through the administration committee earlier tonight. So the projects that were bid out consisted of Willow Lane, Ponds of Menasha Phase 2 and 3, as well as an alternate bid for Jefferson Park. Because we did not fund the Ponds of Menasha Phase 2 and 3, Willow Lane cannot be awarded as part of this contract. We would be removing a far larger percentage of the contract than is allowed by law to keep it, keep it to be able to be approved. So unless the funding situation were to change, we would need to reject these bids. Now, what I would like from the council is direction as far as when do you want me to rebid Willow Lane, as well as when do you want to rebid Jefferson Park and the Ponds of Menasha Phase 2 and 3. We have the choice of either trying to rebid them yet this year. Obviously, not necessarily expecting to get better bid prices, but it is an option. The other option is to bid them early next year, or combination bid Willow Lane this year, bid Ponds of Menasha and Jefferson Park next year. So just looking for a little direction as far as how you want to pursue that.
Alderman Ted Grotti.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question of the mentioned items, what's under construction right now?
What's under construction right now? We have,
Started, yeah.
I don't recall all the streets that are on 2019-01.
No.
Just on this?
Between Willow Lane, you started that already, right?
No, that's Menasha Utilities.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
Waterworks. So they did not budget anything
Think
for
they didn't.
that has nothing to do with this project.
Okay, thank you.
And that will stay in the condition it is until the Willow Lane is rebid out, I take it?
Yes, unfortunately, Menasha Utilities did not provide any funding on their end to repair the surface for the winter, so they'd have to provide funding for that if we were going to do temporary pavement. It would probably end up, getting temporarily paved, a lot like Broad Street did last year. And we know that that street was pretty bad by the time spring came this year.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Menasha Utilities did not provide funds for temporary pavement because we, the council, passed a budget that included reconstruction of their street, which is now tore up because the water main has been replaced or is currently being replaced. The street was delayed once, and residents are waiting for their, the things that they had worked on and agreed to with Director Radomski and city staff regarding their rear yard drainage and sump up issues that they wanted to have addressed as, and so they went ahead and did that work, and they fully expect and have every right to fully expect that their street be reconstructed this year.
The way I'm understanding it is, either way, we have to reject all three bids because the way it was bid upon. So tonight, we could, if this body so desires, they can take the action to reject all three bids and then instruct the director to rebid on Willow Lane or all three of them, if you would like. Or could not reject it and wait until it goes to council and reject it at that point in time and do the same thing. So just whatever this body would prefer to do. Alderman Stefanik.
I would think that if we did it now, that gives us at least 2 more weeks to be able to prepare for something, but I agree with Alderman Nichols. I think Willow needs to be done. I understand we put these together to get a better price and stuff. I had a street that I've been working on for several years myself, and there were issues with that, and I accepted, you know, that it wasn't gonna be done this year. So, I mean, these things happen, and I think paying too much for something is ridiculous. I mean, these bids that we saw should be rejected because they're just way too high. I mean, I could see when they're slightly overpriced or something, but they're almost 50% or more. And so, I guess this is just my personal direction. I think we should reject all bids, but I think that Willow Lane should be done this year.
I'll second that. Is that a motion?
I guess I'll make that a motion if that's okay with everyone else.
I'll second.
The motion is to reject all three bids and instruct Director Radomski to rebid out Willow Lane, correct? Yeah. And we have a motion and a second by Alderman Taylor. Is there further discussion? Alderman Nichols.
I think that rejecting the bids is penny wise and pound foolish, and here's why. Yes, the bids came in higher than we anticipated, and sometimes that happens. What in this environment makes us think that we can get better bids by separating one out and bidding it out by itself and rebidding the rest next year? I don't see the situation of the labor shortage or high bids remedying itself anywhere in the near future. Yes, the costs are coming in higher. Interest rates are still low. What happens when those bids come in higher and the interest rates have gone up and up? It's bound to happen, and so in my mind, it would be better to move forward with these bids, knowing that our interest rate, that our interest costs over time will still be manageable. And I'll leave it at that and see what Alderman Grady has to say.
Alderman Sevenick.
I'm not sure if we can do what you're suggesting, because we already took action earlier in the administration committee. Now I lost my train of thought here. Kind of to your question, I think it almost sounds as though these bids came in with a lot of subcontracting. And I'm just wondering if they didn't layer on with the subcontractors to profit themselves. I mean, yes, they're gonna wanna make some money, but the subcontractors are saying, hey, you're not getting all this, this is a city, they'll pay whatever. I'm not comfortable. I've been up here many years, and this is completely out of line. I've never seen it this high. I mean, don't take this wrong, unless we're goofing up somewhere by not putting out the bids properly, or the contractors know that they can get what they can from deeper pockets. And I'm looking out for the taxpayer. I think the taxpayer would agree with me. Why would we want to pay 50% more for streets because we need to do them? I mean, yes, we need to do them, but there's a price that shouldn't have to be paid.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to hear from the city attorney what our options are at this point, just so they're all on the table.
Attorney Captain.
Options with respect to the bids, you mean?
These contracts.
The contract? Well, basically, you either accept it or reject it. And that vote then, or recommendation, moves on to the Common Council. And the only one that could have been separated was, or anyone, if it's an alternate, obviously that, you can cut that off and still move on, but this part of it was not an alternate bid. And so
Okay.
that's why it requires either,
But then what happens when if, let's say, the contract was approved this evening in committee and moves forward to council with an approval, we still don't have the attached budget adjustment to go with that, so then
That-
what?
correct, that cannot occur. They cannot be let out without those, without approval of those budget adjustments. What's coming out of this committee is a recommendation. So when it got to the council, if it was a recommendation to accept, then those resolutions would have to be back on the agenda, and you can't approve something without the,
Okay.
Attorney Captain, do those resolutions appear on the council agenda as not recommended? Or do they just not appear unless someone recommends that they do appear for some reason?
they would not appear unless someone asked that they be on.
Okay. Alderman Sevenick mentioned that he thinks the taxpayers would agree with him on this, and I say, let's ask them. Let's ask them by taking action, whether it's accepting or rejecting these bids this evening and recommending that to council. Let's ask them so that next meeting, they're on the council agenda and the public has a chance to weigh in on them. If these bids are completely negated this evening and we allow the motion to pass that just says, well, we'll rebid Willow Lane, we haven't given opportunity to the people of the ponds to provide their input. What would they like to see? What would the residents of Willow Lane like to see? And quite frankly, people who are, interested in Jefferson Park, what would they like to see? We're not allowing them to provide input by not forwarding these things to the council. so that the community can come and speak to us at the council meeting. So I would vote to reject the motion that's on the floor, which is to just simply bid out Willow Lane, and take some sort of action to accept or reject to get these items on the council agenda, so that community members have a chance to give their input before a decision is made.
The attorney just informed me that the rejection would go to the council, because the council does have to approve it, and it can be discussed at the council level. So, Alderman Stefanik.
Part of the problem with what Alderman Nichols is suggesting is that we have a different policy than other communities. These are not all totally accessible. If they were accessible, I would agree with you. And if they'd say, yes, charge us 50% more, we want the street, charge us 50% more, I'd say, okay, go ahead, we'll do that. But that's not what's happening. We as a collective are sharing in the cost, and when the cost is way too high, I don't think it's appropriate for all the taxpayers in this community. So that's why I said what I said. I just feel that these bids came in extremely, like I said before, I've been here a long time. They've never come in this high like that. And it's just too much. So.
Alderman Rapala.
Thank you very much, Alderman Kruger. Josh, I think we need to, Willow Lane needs to get done. They started the work. Somehow we need to get a bid, whether you rebid it or not. That needs to, well, I think you gotta rebid it. That work needs to be done somehow, some way this year. The other two streets, the Ponds and Jefferson Park, if you've done your research, you know that in the last 2-3 years, has everything been going up? You stated that you thought everything has been going up, correct?
That is correct.
From other communities, you've talked to other guys and other people in your position, and they're paying these costs, same costs?
Yes, there have actually been a number of communities around the state, or around the area, that have been rejecting bids as well. We aren't in a unique position among communities right now. Every bid project that's coming out right now is high. And
Okay.
that is it's just a matter of fact of the time. So my gut feeling is if there's communities that are rejecting bids now, they're gonna be doing the exact same thing we think we're doing by bidding them out next year and competing for the exact same contractors. So I don't know if we will get better bid prices in January. We might not. I do know that we'll have a better idea as far as what we're gonna budget for the, numbers for next year. But, that's about, all I can give you at this time is, we are seeing other communities have similar issues, and there are very few people who thinks that prices are gonna go down.
Right.
That everyone thinks that prices are gonna go up, significantly, between this year and even next year.
Very few things, the price goes down, so I agree with that. But at some point, if everybody keeps rejecting these bids, the companies that do the work, they're gonna be lacking work because everybody's rejected their bid at some point. And then I can see maybe there's a hope for us in January to get at least a little lower bid, but I'd at least like to give it a try. But we gotta get Willow Lane done by October. That's my thought. Thank you very much.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you. Broad Street was taken out of the queue twice, over 10 years ago, and it was pushed back, and then we got this federal grant, and that took almost 5 years to get where we are today. But the water project going on at Willow Lane it just happened over on Frederick Street too. Hippos comes in. Of course, you got to dig down the center of the road. They put a blacktop overlay on that, and we used to say that had to settle for a year, a frost-free season, before you could do it. So Willow Lane's not going to be tore up like you can't even operate down the street. It's a patch, and Yeah, Willow Lane has needed some work, no doubt about it, the street that should be put in the queue. But you gotta look at this like a contractor coming to your house and you're gonna have a driveway done and it comes in so high over bid. I mean, sometimes they have all this work, so they're all gonna bid high and thinking, as they always do, municipalities got this wonderful thing called change orders and they come back in and just stick it to us. And we've been through this before, I know Alderman Severnick and I have, but Director Radke, and we've refused bids, and sometimes they have just too much on their plate and come back in a different season and get it done at that time. But, you know, there's a point where these are almost crazy bids, and there's a point where we gotta draw the line for the taxpayers, all the taxpayers, and respectfully decline at some point.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call, and this is the, oh, okay, all right. Staff rebid, yep, that's correct. Yeah. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. So that means that a rejection of bids would appear on the,
On the common council, yes.
yeah. I don't recall that, I guess I don't recall that being the motion, Alderman Severnick. Can you help me remember?
That was the motion.
Can I, what?
I'd like to rebid Willow Lane, because I think, like Randy said, maybe it kind of is a priority at this point. But the other bids are just way too high, and. But go ahead.
Chair, can I separate the question? So having a motion to reject
Yes.
all the bids and then a vote to rebid Willow Lane.
Pardon?
Separate the question. Thank you.
Yeah, the attorney did state she can request it to be voted on in two separate motions. So, attorney, could you please clarify?
A request can be made to separate a motion, and sometimes it is not appropriate, but in this particular case, they can be separated.
Why? Does it require a second?
No.
Oh, right. Why are you a second? No, that wasn't good.
Alderman Taylor?
I don't think that was an explanation, that was just a statement. Why can't it be separated? She wants to make an amendment to it, make an amendment to it. But I'd like to ask the attorney why, in this case, can it be separated?
Attorney. Captain?
It can be separated because one is not contingent on the other. So if all the bids are rejected, there can be a vote of yes or no on that one, separate from instructing staff to rebid Willow Lane. I mean, obviously, you'd have to do the reject all bids, and assuming that that passed, I mean, if it didn't pass, well then, the second part would be problematic.
I'm okay with that. Let's move forward, otherwise we'll be here for.
Just to clarify, the rule for division of question. I'm just gonna clarify for the record, this will take 30 seconds. Any member may call for a division of a question when the question is one that may be divided. So the first one that we will be voting on is the rejection of all bids. That is correct. Okay, if we could please take roll call.
Motion carried on roll call, 7-1.
And we will move on to the second one on instructing staff to rebid out Willow Lane. So you take roll call?
And this is just a recommendation of council too, by the way.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Motion carried on roll call, 7-1.
Okay, moving on to action item number 3 is ordinance 7-19, snow and ice removal ordinance. Director Radomski, could you please elaborate?
So this ordinance is seeking to streamline the snow and ice removal process that we expect out of our residents. Right now, what the existing condition is we get a complaint from a resident that someone doesn't have a sidewalk shoveled. We give them, so they have 24 hours to shovel the sidewalk. We get the complaint. We give them another 24 hours in a letter saying you have to clean it up within 24 hours, and then we can finally go in there and do any of that shoveling. It takes a lot of time to track down each of these deliveries of letters that we do. I mean, the vast majority of them, you know, you go out there, you talk to them, and they don't have an issue the rest of the year. There's certain properties that are, you know, extremely bad that it's every single time. The issue is that every time that it snows, it resets that clock. So there's a lot of times snows on, say, a Tuesday, you get a complaint Thursday, we deliver the notice Friday, it snows again on Sunday, that resets the clock, and then you don't get the complaint until Tuesday, you deliver the notice Wednesday. So they've already gone a week and a half before, you know, we've been able to do anything with that sidewalk. You know, and then it could snow again and continue to reset that clock. We actually had that happen quite a few times this year where it would snow every 3-4 days. So what this ordinance is seeking to do is to change the letter notice to 1 time per winter season. So you get your one notice to say, hey, you need to shovel your sidewalk within 24 hours of the snowfall, or else the city has the option to come onto the sidewalk and do it and charge you for that. The other thing that this ordinance is going to do is allow us to hire a private contractor to do the work. So say we get a list of complaints. I know the post office went a little crazy this year, but they gave me a list of about 400 or 500 properties. We appreciate it, but we can't do it with our own crews. So we want to be able to use private contractors as well in cases where there are significant snowfalls, or, you know, we have a significant number of people, so that we can go out to a private contractor and go, hey, take care of these 10, 15, 20 addresses, so that, you know, we can do a better job of keeping the sidewalks clear. So that's what the general gist of the changes in the ordinance is. It's to make the whole process be more streamlined and improve the situation.
Thank you. Alderman Sevenick.
So is this for the year then? So once the letter is issued, then next year, they'd have to get another letter in
Yes,
order to?
the letter is valid from September 1st to August 31st.
And part of the reason we did this was, in the past, was to give people due process. You know, give them an opportunity to take care of it. But the problem is that there are too many habitual offenders of this ordinance, and they don't care. And, this is probably the second or third most complaint-driven calls that I've received. And it's often, from neighbors and people who like to walk. And they don't walk. We want to keep our community healthy. They don't because they're afraid of slipping or falling, and then it makes it dangerous for our residents. So I totally agree with this. Once you become habitual, and there are people that I know that don't shovel at all, and they're happy for the city to come and take care of it, because you know what? The private contractor was more expensive for them. So, and this also pertains to the grass. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
I will be bringing one for the grass as well.
Okay.
That unfortunately, we had some issues with it, between the attorney's review and
Okay.
myself, so we have to clean that one up a
But
little
the
bit.
same,
but
the thing
we do
is
plan
I
on doing it.
believe in due process, but there's a fine line too, when you just totally don't care. And, then move into the village.
Alderman Taylor.
It's a social responsibility. We all look at that snow and we don't want to move it, but it's our social responsibility to do it. And this is way overdue, this type of change for us, and I welcome it. And also, I'm glad we have another government agency out there that's helping in this, the United States Postal Service. So those guys are out there walking it every day, and they have the right not to deliver mail to homes like that. But we need to get those people on board. And I saw on 9th Street in Alderman Seven's district, just on his block and the next block, there was snow that was a foot deep there, and then we have to send our employees out there. And I'm glad we're subbing this out because, workman's comp claims, and we're putting our employees into a situation that you got a foot of packed down snow, and it's just ridiculous for us to have to go out there and try to remove that. So it's great ordinance, and the grass one, I look forward to that one too. Thank you.
Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to forward to council the ordinance O-7-19 for the snow and ice removal.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second by Alderman Tom Grady. Is there any further discussion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. Director Radomski, on the first page, bottom paragraph, under hazardous conditions, I'm curious how you and your department will go about enforcing 2 hours.
This is this is a carryover from our old ordinance. It's for extremely hazardous conditions. Say you have a severe icing problem near a school that's being let out. It's not something that we've ever actually enforced, but it's something that's a carryover from our ordinance. I didn't want to take it away from us if it is a extremely hazardous situation. I don't necessarily intend on using that 2-hour window. I think that is a little bit tight, but there are situations where yes, we do need to take care of it so that pedestrians can move safely. I use the school. It could be a walk run that's coming through early or late in the season that we know that people are going to be on the sidewalk, and we know that there's issues. We want to have that leeway to be able to do that. However, we don't intend on using that on a regular basis at all. It's a very, very lightly used part of our ordinance.
Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, you need a sponsor, and Alderman Langdon said he'd be, as Vice Chair, would like to sponsor the ordinance.
Thank you, Alderman Langdon.
All right, seeing no more further discussion, can we take roll call?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Moving on to action item number 4 is the second amendment to the ground site lease agreement. Director Radomski.
So this is the second amendment to the ground site lease agreement between us and, it's essentially AT&T. It's Telecor and New Singular, but it's all AT&T. That's the parent company. They do rent cell tower space from us. They had wanted to add some, antennas. They wanted to add some coax cables, just some equipment to our tower. We reached out to a consultant to get a, reasonable price for it, and the amount of $450 was considered to be reasonable for the work that they were doing. So we are increasing their rent by $450 in order to add that equipment to the cell tower lease.
Thank you. Alderman Taylor.
I'll make a motion to approve the second amendment to the ground lease agreement.
Okay, there is a, on the second page, section 4-1, in there, it's, is stating First Amendment, that is supposed to be reading Second Amendment. So I'd like to make a motion to, change the wording in, section 4.1, underneath miscellaneous, to remove the word First Amendment and add in Second Amendment in those appropriate spots. We have a motion and a second by Alderman Taylor. Is there any discussion on that motion? See none, can we take a roll call? On the amendment, yes. No. Yeah, there was a second. Oh, okay, I did, okay. Oh, I did, okay. To Second Amendment were appropriate, yes. Yep. Off of, yep. Yeah, it's okay, yep.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0 on the amendment.
Now back to the original motion. Is there any more discussion? As amended. See none, can we take roll call?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Last item is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Taylor, second by Alderman Tom Grady. Any discussion? See none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.